So I'm getting ready to demonstrate on how to glaze both low fire and high fire, but I thought I'd run down your choices first to give you an idea of what you're looking for. And so basically we've got a variety of different glazes going on here, as well as low fire and high fire. So low fire, low fire, low fire, high fire, low fire, high fire, high fire, low fire. So as you see, with low fire you get bright colors, with high fire you get dull and muted colors. That's a real basic difference that you're going to get. So the glazes that we've got going on here, these are shop glazes. They are tricky to manipulate, and so you have to be very careful when you glaze with them, otherwise it looks messy like this does. This is also our shop glaze. So this is our shop glaze, what I'm referring to as our homemade shop glaze right here in the buckets. They are tricky to use, but they are definitely very usable. Mostly you're going to use the shop glazes for your liner on your inside of your vessels, to glaze the inside of the vessels. So this still here is our shop glaze. This person applied theirs with an air gun. This person brushed theirs on. That's why there's such a big difference. I actually brushed this on. And so another reason to use our shop glazes is if you have texture on your piece and you want the glaze to pool. And I'll show close-ups of all these differences so that you have an understanding. Okay, so we've got low fire here, but this is underglaze. Underglaze is not glaze, it goes underneath the glaze. And so with underglaze, you get a nice tight pattern. So these are what your underglazes will look like. We have some Amico underglazes as well as Mako. So these are the Velvet series right here. So if you do not put clear glaze on top of it, it will have a velvety surface. Underglazes always get clear glaze on top of them most of the time. If you choose not to put a clear glaze on the top of it, just know that your piece will get dirty, so you need to protect it somehow. So those are the underglazes. This is again cone 10. This is cone 10. These are both the same glaze. This person airbrushed theirs on, and this person brushed theirs on with a paintbrush. That's why you see the different variations. And so this again here is our shop glaze right here, our homemade shop glaze. They airbrushed the black glaze on, and then I will describe the technique they used to get that color on there. So one thing I do not have an example of with student work is our commercial glazes. And so this is a commercial glaze. I have a personal example which I will show you a detail of, and I'll show you a detail of these all in a minute just to help you make your decision. Okay, back to the differences and details of our glazes. So again, I'm starting with shop glazes. So as you can see, this person had a real difficult time getting their brush strokes even. So that's why you have this really patchy quality that's going on. This here is also shop glaze, and they used an air gun. I will show you how to use that. Air guns are fast and easy to use. This here is also shop glaze. That's brushed on with the paintbrush. This is my piece. I'm obviously more skilled with paintbrush. Also the texture helps in hiding brush strokes as well. This here is also shop glaze. This is one of my pieces, as well as this. So let me turn it right side up. So with the shop glazes, you'll notice there's more running that's going to happen. You can see the running that's happening here. The line work though is actually really not runny at all, because that is done with underglaze. So that's to say you can do underglaze and shop glaze or commercial glazes together if you want. But so notice those stars, how much the color ran. So with our shop glazes, you're going to get a lot more running. And so that's kind of the beauty, I think, of the shop glazes is the running. You can also see there's a lot of transparency that's happening in that planet. Part of the reason that the planet isn't running more is just because of the technique I used, which is Mishima, and so the black outline is actually carved into the clay before it's fired, and so it helps kind of keep the glaze from running too much. But so basically, really, that's what you're going to get with our shop glazes. You're going to get a lot more running that's going to happen. you know, I think they sort of look like they get caught in a rainstorm, and I really like that. So this here is also shop glaze. And so the way they did this is they airbrushed the black on first, and then they went through and they carved, after they had all of black airbrushed on, they took a metal tool and they carved these lines into the glaze before it was fired. And then what they did is they just used the paintbrush and they used their shop glaze and then put the color. So when you look closely, that's why that line is so white in the middle, and the place where it's doing all of this beautiful sort of commingling, you will see. Look at all that beautiful patchwork or variation. That's because that's what the glaze does when it bleeds into it itself. It's really, really beautiful. So you can do something like that if you're interested. So again, those are variations of our shop glaze. Underglaze, the beauty of underglaze is you can get a lot of control and really tight lines. And one thing I want you to sort of notice with this piece is, maybe you can see it better if I do this. When you pay attention to the light on here, see how bumpy this is? This vessel is super bumpy. It's really, really bumpy. I guess it's not all that bumpy, but it's fairly bumpy. But when you put a pattern on something, you don't ever see the bumps. The bumps sort of disappear and your eyes gravitate towards the pattern. So what you'll notice with this is you have really straight, crisp, clean lines. And so you see some sort of variation in her glazing here. You know, you'll see some translucency. That's just because her coverage isn't super good. But everywhere where her coverage is good, like on those polka dots, you do not see translucency, and there's absolutely no running or bleeding. So it's like a good comic book effect, I would say. And so basically these are our underglazes. And when you come to commercial glazes, this is an example of a plate that I made with commercial glazes. And so you don't see very much running, but you'll notice the lines aren't super crisp. You know, there's a little bit of bleeding and fading into itself. And so it's a little bit looser. The black lines, again, are underglaze, and so that's why those are crisp, but none of the other lines are very crisp. So this is another example. So you'll see there's also, these glazes are somewhat translucent, and so that's why you see that modulation. That's why you see you'll see the clay body basically through the glaze. And so they're not super tight. They do sort of bleed together. And then this is a student piece. This was a base that went to a teapot that is student glazed. And so this again is commercial glaze. And so right here, you can see right here, they didn't get the two glazes very close together. Right there they did. They got them lined up so you don't have that white spot in the middle where the clay body is sort of bare. But so you see when you join the two glazes together, you do not get a nice crisp line. There is some sort of bleeding that happens. Okay, when it comes time to fire to the high fire glazes, know that they are a little bit more forgiving. So you're not generally, for the most part, you're not going to see all the brush strokes like you do as much with the low fire glazes. But every glaze is a little bit different. So this glaze, this piece here, was brushed on, and so there's really good coverage that's happening here, and you really don't see any of the brush marks. This piece here was air gunned, so you do have a more flawless surface with the air gun. The trick with the air gun is students often have a difficult time shooting the glaze underneath the vessel, and so you can see here that there's not a lot of coverage going on there. You can see more of the clay body through the glaze, and then as it goes up, they're able to do more coverage. But you do get a more uniform surface. So this glaze is the exact same color. This glaze is one of those particular glazes, though, when it gets thick, it turns more milky white. when it's thin, you can see the clay body underneath it a little bit more. So there's this one really does have a lot of variation with the thicknesses. Versus this glaze here, there's really it doesn't have any variation when you go thick to thin. But so you can see all of the brush strokes that are happening with this, but actually it creates sort of a lovely patina. So, it really just depends on what you're going for.